Okay, so thank you again for being here today. My name is Taryn Barry. I'm the project manager of Active Abilities Canada, and we are celebrating the International Day of Persons with Disabilities. We're so excited to be here to celebrate persons with disabilities and also celebrate the official launch of the Municipal Guide for Disability Inclusion in Recreation and Physical Activity. So thank you for registering and joining us on this webinar today. We're really excited to share with you more information about this resource. So just a few housekeeping notes. I wanted to point out Jen Abel. Jen will be pinned in this call, so you will be able to see her. She is an ASL English interpreter, so she's here for folks that use and watch ASL interpretation for the remainder of the presentation. So thank you to Jen. If you're having you require Jen services or you need any support, you can reach out to Moji. She is our communications manager and our moderator for the presentation today. So you can ask her in the chat for any additional support you may need with Jen services. So thank you for being here today. We have closed captioning for folks, so if you want to add that on your side of things, it should be accessible already. We will be welcoming questions in the Q&A. So if you have questions in French or English, you're more than welcome to add those questions in the Q&A. For anything that's tech related, sound for the webinar, you can write in the chat section for Moji to support. And we have one of our staff members at Active Abilities Canada. We have French capacity. Her name is Marianne Parent, and she's here to support with any questions in French near the end of the presentation. So we'll get to those questions at the end, and then we encourage you to reach out to us or myself after the webinar today for more information. The webinar is being recorded. We will send that out. I've already had some emails from folks that are unable to attend today, and so we'll be sending those out, the recording out to them as well. So thank you so much. I want to hand this over to my colleague, Dr. Janet Lawson from the University of Manitoba, to provide a land acknowledgement for us.
Good morning or good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for tuning in, as Taryn said. I just wanted to begin the call by recognizing that throughout the course of this project, we've spoken with people in diverse communities across Canada and on the traditional lands of different First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples, again from across Canada. I personally am calling in from the campus of the University of Manitoba here in Winnipeg, which is situated on the traditional lands of the Anishinaabeg, Ininiwak, Assinininewak, Dakota Iote, and Dene peoples, as well as on the homeland of the Red River Métis. It's an ongoing process for me as a scholar and a researcher to learn more about the communities and the peoples who've stewarded these lands since time immemorial, and the role that they have in shaping continued research and continued participation in sport and physical activity and recreation for persons with disabilities. So I encourage you to look into the communities local to your area as well as we move forward, and keep in mind how you might work with First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples in your community to apply the principles of the guide. Thanks.
Thank you, Janet. I appreciate that. So we wanted to have a straightforward goal of the webinar so folks know why we're here today. And we really want people to leave feeling inspired to use the Municipal Guide by implementing some of the strategies in the resource. We will come back to this goal at the end when we talk about some of the calls to action that we have. And a quick agenda that we will start with a bit of an introduction on what International Day of Persons with Disabilities is, the history, a few introductions of the partners that work together to create this incredible resource, how we develop the Municipal Guide using evidence-based strategies, and then what is in the guide. So some of the how-to tips and recommendations and strategies, as well as we have guests today that are going to share some really positive success stories of their lived experience or within their municipality in disability inclusion. And we'll finish with how to use the guide and some of the things that Active Abilities Canada has in store for 2026 and beyond. And then finally, we'll end with some calls to action and questions. So, a little history of this day. The United Nations established International Day of Persons with Disabilities in 1992. And the day grew out of the UN Decade of Disabled Persons and gained further momentum with the adoption of the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities in 2006. So, its goal is to encourage full and effective participation in society for persons with disabilities. And I want to introduce you to us and reintroduce you to our new logo and brand. So you may have known us as Active Living Alliance for Canadians with a Disability. We have rebranded recently to Active Abilities Canada. So for 36 years, you would have known us as the Active Living Alliance for Canadians with a Disability. And our vision has been fairly consistent over these 36 years to help ensure that all persons with disabilities in Canada can be physically active and experience well-being. Today, Active Abilities Canada supports communities and organizations to facilitate the participation of persons with disabilities in physical activity, recreation, and community sport. And one way we are doing this is by releasing this municipal guide today. I also want to highlight and share a little bit about Canadian Disability Participation Project 2.0. And Dr. Amy Latimer Chung is on the call, and we just want to thank her for being the principal investigator on this research project and representing CDPP 2.0. So this organization is a research partnership of 43 academics from across Canada, the United States, and England, and 31 partners from Canadian sport, exercise, and play organizations in academic institutions. The goal of CDPP 2.0 is to co-create and mobilize new knowledge to improve quality participation in sport, exercise, and active play, and optimize outcomes of participation among children, youth, and adults experiencing disability. So we couldn't have done this project without their support and guidance on the research methodologies we use to develop this evidence-based resource. So thank you so much. We also couldn't have done it and created this guide without our funding partners. So I particularly want to thank the Federal, Provincial, Territorial Sport, Physical Activity and Recreation Council, SPARC, and a few people in particular that have been are really incredible supporters: Jason King, Fauzi Hersey, and Catherine Doran. And as well as we've had financial support from the Government of Canada, including Sport Canada and a translation grant from Canadian Heritage. So thank you so much. And we also couldn't have done it without partners such as the Canadian Parks and Recreation Association and the affiliate provincial and territorial recreation associations across the country. And we've had fantastic partners for French translation and adaptation, RAP and resonance strategies. And then finally, I want to thank the partners that we had that represented our consensus panel. I'll share a little bit more about that on a next slide. So we are really excited today to be launching this municipal guide for disability inclusion in recreation and physical activity. We encourage you to check out the website. It is live now in English and in French. The content is on the website, and you can navigate through the website, but you can also download it in both languages if you so desire. And I think Moji might add in the chat the website so you can click on it right now if you want to look at it while we're talking on the webinar. So how did we get here? Well, I want to shout out Mike Arthur, our chair of Active Abilities Canada. So Mike has a wealth of government experience in recreation and lived experience with disability, and has had this vision that we need a resource for municipalities, that there wasn't a set of guidelines since 1991 that was published, and it's no longer in print. And so Mike set forth to bring these different partners to the table in mid to late 2023. And so without his vision and tenacity, we wouldn't all be here today looking through this resource. So thank you to Mike. So one of the main reasons why we developed this guide is municipal governments have a mandate to provide recreation to all residents, including those with a disability. And as more municipalities across Canada, there's over 5,000, work towards these goals, this guide offers helpful ideas and recommendations and improve the quality of recreational activities for everyone. So I just wanted to set the context. What is the purpose of this guide? So the purpose is to provide how-to strategies for staff to implement disability inclusion in municipal recreation departments. And the primary target audience is for staff who work in the capacity of directors, managers, coordinators of recreation and leisure services. But obviously, we encourage other types of audiences. It could be advocates, persons with disabilities, community organizations, and folks that are just interested in learning more. So what is in the municipal guide? Well, what you will see is that there are 8 areas of practice, and that includes programming, built environment, workplace culture, staff training, communication, partnerships, evaluation, and persuading decision makers. Within each area of practice, there are dozens and dozens of how-to strategies. It's an incredibly comprehensive resource, and it's one of the most comprehensive resources that exists in this area. So we're really excited to share it with you. So how did we get here? How did we develop? Well, with the guidance of Dr. Amy Latimer Chung and our steering committee, we were able to form a consensus panel, as I mentioned, of experts, people with lived experience, researchers, particularly people that work in municipal recreation. And we have the names and the folks listed on the consensus panel in the guide and on our website, so you can have a look at these wonderful people that gave their time and energy and knowledge to this resource. We met many times online, and we actually came together as a group in Ottawa in 2024. We hosted focus groups in both 2024 and 2025. And we conducted several rapid literature reviews. And this is why there are so many how-to strategies in our guide, because of just the extensive process that we conducted over the last 24 months. Another thing we did is we recognized that there are some really incredible resources out there. And instead of redoing those resources, we worked with the people that designed them, and we adapted some of these resources for the guide. So you'll see that in there. And then finally, we did sector surveys across the country, and another one in Saskatchewan recently, in person at a conference. And so that was a way to get a sense
Dear.
of and have already done really great work in their communities in disability inclusion. And so those are highlighted in the guide, and we continue to want to collect those stories. So if you're listening and you think you have a really cool story, I know there's a lot of people on the call today that work for municipalities. If there's something that you're doing, we would love to highlight that, and you can reach out to me after the webinar. So I'm going to move on to the next part of the webinar, which is we're going to give a snapshot of how-to strategies. I remind you that this resource is quite comprehensive, and I'm only going to talk about 2 to 3 strategies in each area of practice, which will come to about 25 strategies. And I don't want this to be so extensive that we're on a webinar for longer than an hour. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to invite our guests today and our knowledge brokers to share some success stories around these strategies in areas of practice. So the first one I wanted to talk to you about is our area of practice called programming. Municipal recreation programming that is inclusive allows for persons with disabilities to fully participate and engage. It includes creating programming where everyone can join in and providing information, products, services, and spaces that can be adapted to meet each person's unique needs. So some examples in our guide of how-to strategies is one, you could make sure your programs meet what the community wants and needs. So, for example, you can offer programs that are just for people with disabilities or ones that include everyone. You might even offer both types of programs. We recognize that municipalities come in all sizes, and that was something that we talked about as a consensus panel. And so, while I talk to you about some of these how to strategies, we recognize it's not a prescriptive resource. It's based on what your capacity as a community and as a municipality. And so some of these might not work right now, and some of them you might think that you could implement. Another example is you can invite participants and their caregivers to visit the facility before the program starts. So that's a pretty simple how-to strategy. It could be something that's fairly affordable to implement, and it could go a long way for caregivers to feel like they are included as well. Um, Another area of practice is called communication. So, effective, inclusive, and accessible communication by municipal recreation leaders and frontline staff helps break down barriers, making it easier for persons with disabilities to take part in both unstructured and structured recreation and physical activity programs. So, a couple how-to strategies here is that you can use clear and consistent language to explain terms like physical activity, adapted accessibility, integrated, and inclusive. You can follow established disability terminology from reputable sources. For example, Employment and Social Development Canada has a really great resource. And then remember that preferred language in the disability community can change. And sorry about that. Um, that it can change and it depends on the person that you're speaking with. So I see that we have a couple hands raised. If possible, we're just not taking any questions as we are currently presenting, but we encourage you to write in the Q&A. If you have a question, we can come to it at the end. I now want to invite Marina Pinto Miller, Dr. Marina Pinto Miller, our knowledge broker. She is an award-winning author and illustrator and newest board member of Active Abilities Canada. So, Marina, I would love to invite you to turn on your video and your audio and share a little bit about your personal and lived experience with disability and some of the experience you've had in recreation and potentially some of the things that have gone well for you.
Am I unmuted?
You are.
Okay. Okay, well, my name, as you can see, Marina Pinto Miller. I have a PhD in anthropology. I also have a disability that I was born with, cerebral palsy, which means I walk with what used to be called, I don't know if people still call them this, but elbow crutches. And my history with sports and recreation has been over the last decade, I would say, when I realized I needed to go swimming in order to maintain mobility. So I began a tour of my local community centers to see where I could go to swim. I wasn't very organized about this. So it was like if I found a place that was friendly, I went there. If things changed, I tried to find somebody else. So that's been my brief little snapshot of how this has worked for me. What I do is I go there with my husband and we talk to the community center. Mostly we talk directly to the pool and the lifeguards. And if they're amenable and the situation works for me, then I can use their pool. What it means in terms of specific details that are important for accessibility is that most pools that I've had experience with If it's indoors, access to the pool deck is usually through a change room, which is problematic in that the floors are never dry. So that means, for example, I can't walk on the crutches because I can't guarantee that I'll stay upright. So if the facility has a wheelchair or someone can walk me to the pool deck, and by that I mean hold on to me tightly, that's also a possibility. Another issue that I face, and this is personal to me in the nature of my disability, is that if the benches or the changing facilities are such that I cannot find a place where I can easily take off my outer clothing, meaning my shoes and socks, and put them on again, usually I cannot do that independently. So I have to ask for help from the lifeguards on the pool deck to get my shoes and socks on for
Mhm.
me. I never go to the community center with the expectation that I'm going to use the change rooms. I simply go in my swimsuit, come back in my swimsuit, having put on and taken off my outer clothes. But the one issue I have, and this did turn out to be an issue at one point, was that I do need help with the shoes and socks. And you would think that that would be okay. But I used to use a facility that I was very happy with until one day one of the lifeguards said to me, well, we can no longer do that because they received training that if they felt uncomfortable, they didn't have to assist, meaning physically assist. I have noticed this trend across things like Wheel-Trans, where drivers will tell you, oh no, we cannot help you get into the car because we're not allowed to touch you. Well, I'm here to say that that's if that occurs, then that means someone like me can no longer participate. I cannot use your facility. My reason for wanting to use swimming pools and recreational facilities is simply this. I want to be mobile, and swimming is the one activity that gives me absolute mobility in the sense that it works every muscle in my body, but I'm not making an effort. I'm just swimming back and forth. It feels great. I can do it for an hour. I don't get tired. I don't risk falling down or any of those things that happen to me when I'm not in the pool. But if there is any um, impediment of the nature that I've just described, I, it stops and I have to find another place. I've usually been very, very fortunate with the young people who work at pools. Um, The only other issue I've ever encountered, to be honest, is sometimes the people using the pool because they don't realize that if I'm sticking to the wall and going back and forth, I can't really go out into the middle of the pool. There have been a couple of instances where people, and I hate to say this, but adults and able-bodied people have been quite rude, and the lifeguards have come to my defense, luckily, because I'm very non confrontational. I figure if I just show up and show myself and do my thing and swim back and
Mhm.
forth, most people really respect that. And so it's overall, I love swimming. I love to go swimming, and I love the pool where I'm welcome and the staff make it easy for me. I think that the municipal guide is a great breakthrough. And from my perspective as a person with disabilities who aspires to keep using these facilities for as long as I possibly can, um, you know, I'm very willing to participate and help inform in the areas of what makes a space accessible, what kind of programming you might need, and how to train staff. Because at the end of the day, we're all just human beings and we all want to be part of something bigger than ourselves. That's all I've got to say today.
Thank you, Marina. That was it. I'm so grateful that we got to hear a little bit about your lived experience. Yeah, it's so wonderful to hear that you want to participate in sport, and there has been some experiences that you've had that are positive. Of course, many barriers, but I do hear staff training and communication, um, effective communications for and with persons with disabilities can make your experience better and safer. And so, yeah, thank you so much, Marina, for being here today and sharing your experience.
Yes, and I'd just like to say, by and large, I wouldn't still be swimming unless my experience was overall positive. I do think, though, that there's a lot of room for people like me to be able to interface directly where
Mhm.
possible in terms of letting municipalities know what we need, because
Mhm.
it does vary from person to person. And but I don't think that a lot of people in the disability community, I think a lot of people, if they don't feel welcome initially, they may not come back.
Right.
Whereas
Yeah,
I'm very stubborn.
that's fantastic. Stubborn is good.
Yeah,
Thank you, Marina.
thank you.
And I'm going to move on to the next area of practice. So, partnerships, as was a huge part of our project, is key to creating inclusive, accessible recreation opportunities for everyone in the community, including persons with disabilities. Working with local organizations, advocates, and other government levels help municipalities share resources, coordinate these efforts, and change attitudes about disability. These relationships not only improve program quality, but also make better use of existing community assets. So, a couple how to strategies that we have in our guide is to know the purpose of each partnership, whether it's about funding, training, shared facilities, mutual learning, referrals, or evaluation. Make sure to bring in partners from different sectors and orders of government early in the planning. And you may want to invite disability organizations and recreation groups to help shape policy. Another area of practice that Marina had, kind of touched on in her story is that ongoing education and training helps municipal recreation staff at all levels develop the skills and confidence needed to deliver inclusive programs and services. Effective staff training should be planned, partner driven, and designed for real world learning and autonomy. So, a couple different strategies that we have in our guide is to identify training needs by determining who should be trained, what topics should be covered, and who will lead the training, and how often the sessions should occur. Another strategy is to review existing training resources from local, national, and international organizations before developing new ones. And think about adding some common accommodations to your workplace policies. For example, you could allow people to work remotely. And then finally, before we get to our next speaker, evaluations. So evaluating your programs helps you understand what works, where to grow, and how to make municipal recreation more inclusive for persons with disabilities. A solid evaluation makes decisions more transparent, ensures accountability, and leads to better evidence-based programming. And just a couple of how-to strategies in our municipal guide. One, think about who will use the information from this evaluation. So before you even create an evaluation, think about how this information will actually be used. And before you start, check, does the person doing the evaluation have the time, the capacity, and the right skills? And can your organization use the findings to make changes? And with that, I want to welcome Wendy Scott from Ability New Brunswick as one of our knowledge brokers today. Wendy, her story is highlighted in our municipal guide. You might see that on our website or in the resource itself. But Wendy, I would love to welcome you to share a little bit about your experience in disability inclusion and some of the success you've had.
Hi, thanks for having me. Thanks, Marina, for pointing out exactly why my program exists. So I'm the director of the Accessible MB program with Ability New Brunswick, and we do accessibility reviews for businesses and municipalities, pools being one of them, to compare it to current codes and standards and give people recommendations on how to get up to code. We've worked with several municipalities around the province. This program's only been in existence for about 3.5 years now, but I feel like we've got our feet on the ground and we're making a lot of collaborations. Um, I'm in New Brunswick. A lot of New Brunswick communities are very rural and older and very non-accessible. Um, so working directly with them is been really eye-opening to just how inaccessible the province is, but exciting because we're seeing so much progress and moving forward. Um, some of the ways that we collaborate besides doing accessibility reviews is consultation. We have a free consultation service. Um, most of our reviews are free unless you're one of our 7 urban centers. And then we have a small fee for service for that. We can also read design and construction plans. So if uh, there's a new recreation facility going up in a big community, we can absolutely look at those design plans. We can sit on stakeholder committees to advise as the design phases go through. Because once it's built, it's too late to change. One of our successes, I don't know how many people from New Brunswick are on the call. There might be some people I've worked with before, but one of our biggest successes is working with St. Andrews by the Sea, which is a small community on the Bay of Fundy. We have reviewed several buildings for them now, including some historic sites, and worked directly with them to make their community more accessible. They are now an age-friendly listed community in our province. They reach out with any questions they have. They built a new trail. They built an accessible bird watching platform, which was kind of exciting because that's something we'd never done before. So like there's a whole bunch of stuff that we can work on with a municipality. I've been with Ability New Brunswick for 10 years now, but half of that time was with our Para MB Sport and Recreation program. So I have a bit of a passion for that. So anytime a recreation department reaches out, I'm really excited to work with them. Here in the city of Fredericton, there's a lot going on with parks. So I've been working closely with the city here, their recreation department, and getting more parks accessible.
That's great.
Playgrounds and whatnot. Yeah. So it's this municipal guide is going to be a great resource for us to hand out to everyone we work with.
That's
And
awesome.
maybe someday municipalities won't need us. I'll be out of a job, but
Well, we don't want that.
that's our goal, is to be able to shut our doors.
That's great. And well, and the more we learn, there will be more to do. So I hope that Ability New Brunswick will still exist a long time from now. So
I
thank you,
hope
Wendy,
so.
so
Yeah,
much.
I just also want to add, we
Yes,
just
please.
got an Accessibility Act 2 years ago.
Right.
So there is a lot happening in this province, and it's a really exciting time.
That's great. And hopefully the two resources, our municipal guide and the Accessibility Act, will complement one another and the
I,
work that you're continuing to do. Yeah,
I expect so. Yeah.
great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy. And for folks on the call, if you want to read a little bit more about Wendy and the story she shared, it is in our guide. So that is accessible on the website. Okay, so I just have three more areas of practice and then one more story. So thank you so much for being on the call today. Really appreciate it. So the built environment, accessibility in municipal buildings and outdoor recreation spaces means designing them so that everyone can use them comfortably, no matter what kind of disability they may have. This includes thinking about people with physical disabilities, so potentially cerebral palsy, a spinal cord injury, even chronic illness or diabetes. Sensory disabilities, so low vision, hearing loss, or neurodiverse disabilities, so ADHD and dyslexia needs. A couple of the how-to strategies that we're highlighting today on the webinar in the guide include invest in an accessibility advisory committee if you don't have one. If your municipality already has a committee, potentially as a rec director or manager, go to their meetings and talk about recreational activities. Another strategy is get a variety of people involved right from the start of the facility or infrastructure planning. This includes people with different kinds of disabilities, as well as their caregivers, family, and friends. And then find experts who know how to do accessibility audits. And the next area of practice, workplace culture. An inclusive workplace culture and management is one where everyone, including people with disabilities, feels welcomed, respected, and supported. It starts with leaders that support inclusion and take form with human resources practice that promote equal opportunities and provide everyone with what they need to succeed. So a couple of the how-to strategies we want to show you is first, you could provide assistive technology to employees who want to use it. And you can partner with outside groups to get more assistive technology, learn how to use it, and support employees better. Another thing you may want to do is create a mission statement that shows you care about society and that you're committed to hiring and keeping employees and volunteers with disabilities. And then lastly, our last area of practice focuses on persuading decision makers. This area really came from the consensus panel's perspective and expertise on recognizing that you cannot often complete or achieve some of these strategies or these accessibility and inclusion tips and strategies without the support of council members and decision makers. And so this area of practice really focuses on that. So municipal recreation staff frequently need to get municipal council and senior managers on board with making activities inclusive and accessible for everyone. This usually means asking for funding, spaces, staff, and time to help break down barriers for persons with disabilities. Winning support takes time. You'll need to show strong communication, lasting relationships, and facts that show the value of inclusion. So there's a lot of things that actually came up in our focus groups. Some of those folks might be on this call today. There was a story of a community that hired a human rights lawyer to kind of educate the municipal recreation staff on what are the arguments and the laws that support people with disabilities and the infrastructure they need and the programs they need to have them be able to participate in physical activity. So that was a really interesting, an example that emerged in our research process. Some of the things in this area of practice, how-to strategies include emphasize shared goals and values when you're talking to decision makers. Invite people with firsthand experience with you to speak and highlight how accessibility helps everyone. You may also suggest trying the initiative first before committing completely in the form of a pilot project or demo site. And we actually have an example in the municipal guide and one of the success stories about this. And so how the community hosted a program for persons with disabilities, a small pilot project, and then came to council, came to the decision makers with that evidence and shared with them how it went, brought people with them, so community members that participated to highlight the desire and need for a program or a facility that is accessible. And so with that, I want to invite Adam Dedrick. I apologize if I said your name wrong. He's the Director of Recreation and Parks for the Municipality of Shelburne in Nova Scotia. So Adam, he is highlighted in the guide as well, but I introduce you. I think you've you're on screen now. So Adam, I would love to hear your story.
Thank you. Yeah, so essentially, we had a park that we were doing. It needed some upgrades regardless, but we focused on doing making them accessibility upgrades. So I'll try to fit all this in a short time span. But our park is basically in a kind of in the outskirts of town. It's in a wooded area, and it's on a lake. So we have a little waterfront area with a beach, but we also have some playground equipment, a few gazebos, and a parking area. So what we wanted to do essentially was make that park more accessible. With the thought of, or the goal was basically to you want to be able to get from the parking lot to the beach and back to the parking lot without any barriers, and all the while being able to have access to all the amenities and park features. So that was kind of the vision, I guess, if you will. And what's at the park and what we ended up doing kind of was we had an accessible parking space. And it's a dirt parking area. So we did actually put a cement slab in. It was painted. We had an accessible pathway which connected to all the amenities from the parking area into the park, right back to the parking area. We upgraded some of our play equipment by adding accessible surfacing and some new equipment. We relocated we have like change rooms there, and we don't have outdoor washrooms, but we have enclosures for portable toilets or porta potties. So we kind of centered or put them in a more of a central location. And then we added new picnic tables that were all accessible, things like that. We put in a new dock that had railings and like seating on it, so it was more accessible. We installed a mowing mat on the beach, so you could go right from the pathway or from one of the gazebos down to the water. And we tried to have it some viewing areas along the pathway that you could sit. There was enough space for, like, say, wheelchair access to just relax and look like almost like a look off in the park. So those were kind of the major things in a nutshell. We completed it in the spring of 2024, but we started the process in 2018. So it was about a 7-year process. The first 3 years was the consultation and kind of information gathering. So this is where we went out and tried to engage potential users, but especially those that may have disabilities or first voice to get their input on the potential upgrades to the park, especially when it came to accessibility. And that kind of took. There's two ways that we did that. One was we did have an actual accessibility audit done by a consultant where they went around with an individual in a wheelchair and basically tried everything out before we did any upgrades to tell us what needed to kind of, or what they would suggest or recommend to be done. And then we also we did a community engagement session where we actually met on site at the park to invite people to go around, check it out, and say, hey, what do you think needs to be done? What could be improved? And then kind of dream big as to what would be there. So those were two big things we did. And we also had those individuals come to a workshop where we actually gave them maps of the park and they just drew on it, whatever. So a very hands-on approach to trying to doing that engagement. So, and then when it came to kind of persuading or getting our council on board, like, fortunately, I have a very supportive council. But with that being said, some important things I think on our end, or for me, was keeping them informed on the project, having a clear vision and objectives for the project so that they understood what it was for, why we were doing it, and then engaging them in the process. So a few counselors were involved with some of those consultation sessions, and that definitely helped with them having a really good idea and understanding of the project. On paper is one thing, but to go there on site and see it and be involved was another. Also, any public engagement that we did was good. Councils like to definitely have their residents involved if they can. That's always a win. And then in the end, any kind of successful project makes them look good. So, you kind of put them at the forefront of things happening. But when it came to the consultation piece, we talk about engaging those users and groups up front. That gave us some really good data that when we were making the case to continue the project and whatnot, when you're hearing from the first voice, you can't really argue that if folks are saying there's a need there. And we also had organizations that represent persons with disabilities there. So, because it impacts more than just sometimes the individual, it's many organizations and groups that are supporting those individuals. or family members, things like that. So that helped a lot. And it definitely helped too for councils to see that. And that gives them that extra bit of data, if you will, that supports the project. Um, and we did at the end of the project, we did like a test run with we actually have an accessibility advisory committee, um, which formed about halfway through the project. And one of the members of the accessibility advisory committee at the time, she used a wheelchair, so we took her right on site and just went around with her, and she was gave her honest feedback on things, because she had that unique perspective, and that was very helpful as well. In the end, we only had to do a few tweaks, but it was really good to be able to do that. Um, and I think one thing that when it comes to that kind of stuff as well, um, there's many consultants out there, and now compared to back to 2018 when we started to now, there's way more information, just like this, what we're talking about today. There's so much information out there. The Accessibility Act, most units now have accessibility plans, but the information was out there, some of it at the time, and that's what we referenced. But also many of the contractors we worked with, they do know their stuff as well, and they can kind of tell you what can be done realistically compared to what's on paper, especially when you talk about built environment.
Mhm.
So that's always good to know too. That's just kind of unrelated but related. But in the end, we were able to get a pretty well-rounded park, that did meet many needs. It's not perfect per se, and of course, there's many needs when it comes to accessibility and disabilities. But it's an ongoing thing, and we'll kind of do things as we go along from kind of here on out, I guess. Um, One of the next things we're doing at the park is we're adding a Moby chair. So we're going to install a shed, and then the Moby chair will be kept on site with a code. So if people need it, they can just access it right on site. They don't have to pick it up and take it from anywhere. We're going to be starting that next summer. So we're just adding on things as we go to hopefully provide
That's
more
great.
accessible features. But
Adam, would you be able to, for the folks that don't know, what is a Moby chair?
so basically, if you're aware of what a hippocam is, it's kind of similar to a hippocam, but it has flotation devices on it, so you can actually go float in the water in the chair
Mhm.
rather than just maybe with like a hippocam, you can go in the water, but it would just push you into the water. But the Moby chair can actually float, so you could go out further in the water and experience, floating in the water, which, for many people that's not an option potentially.
Mhm.
So it gives them that option and that experience. So we were able to get a grant and get one of those
Great.
purchased. So yeah. But I think if that touches on things, there might be other things to
You touched
mention, but
on many things. I think this might have been very helpful for people on the call that work in municipalities. Lots of great examples and so many things that you did from start to finish. And it sounds like you're continuing to do this work. So thank you so much for being part of the
yeah,
project and sharing your
welcome.
success story in our guide. We think it will be really useful for other groups and organizations. So thank you, Adam, for being here
Yep,
today and sharing everything with us.
welcome. Thanks for having me.
So, as we come to the end of the formal part of the webinar, and then maybe an opportunity for some questions, Q&A, um, we've now gone through all 8 areas of practice. There's a lot, and a few of those how-to strategies within the guide. We encourage you to look on our website and download the guide today. And you'll see that there are many more. So we really appreciate you taking the time to look through it. But how to use the guide, this is something that we don't want the resource to just sit as a file on your desktop, or it's something that you don't use in the end. We really our focus as an organization on disseminating the guide and helping municipalities and organizations use the guide. So that one of the ways that we see our next phase of this project as for Active Abilities Canada is to support municipalities and organizations to create their action and strategy plans using the guide. And then hopefully that action plan, the goal would be to have it endorsed and adopted by municipal council. We see that as a one way to have long-term systemic change in how persons with disabilities are included in recreation services and programs. It can also be used as a staff training resource, an accountability checklist, an advocacy tool, and an education tool. So If you would like to reach out to me directly after the webinar, discuss how we could potentially support your municipality in the new year with a tailored webinar or tailored online chat, that would be we're more than welcome. And so you can email me at taryn@activeabilities.ca. I think Moji's put my email into the chat. So to come back to the goal of the webinar was to make people feel inspired to download the guide, use the guide, and maybe apply some of the how-to strategies with the ultimate aim to increase disability inclusion in municipal recreation. And when we come to this slide on our calls to action, some of the things that we want to highlight is we want to encourage folks on the call to visit our website if you haven't done so already. You will see that the content is, you can navigate through the content on our website. You can also download the guide in French and English. And we would encourage you, number two, to share our website and the guide with a colleague or someone that you think that might find it useful that did not attend today. The next thing we call to action, we ask folks is to create a plan. So choose a how-to strategy in the guide that you think that is feasible within your community based on your needs and your capacity, and develop an implementation plan. So will you implement that strategy within the next 6 months or year? And then finally, we would love to have you share your success stories with us and with others, but we would love to have those success stories so we can share them with across Canada. So feel free again to send me an email. Another way you can learn more about our project as we develop phase 3 and community of practice and a support around the municipal guide is to go to our front page of our website, scroll to the bottom right, and sign up for our newsletter or on our mailing list. And there will be more information come January about some of the plans we have for the municipal guide and supporting you to use it. And with that, I want to, I'm looking at the time, kind of look at some of the questions that may have been asked, and maybe Moji, you can help guide me with some of the questions that have been asked throughout the webinar. Thank you so much for your time today.
So we have our first question that says, what's the name of the park in Shelburne Municipality that Adam was talking about?
It's called Welcome Park, but it's spelled Welkum. It's kind of a play on words for the area. It's on Welshtown Lake, and anyway, it's called Welcome Park. Welkum Park.
Thanks,
And I
Adam.
think we have some pictures on our website now of since the upgrades have been done. So it's the municipality of District of Shelburne, and you could look at it there. It's hard to know from what I was saying without being able to visualize it, but the pictures will give you a better idea.
Thank you. And I'll also put the link to the park's website on in the chat as well. We have another one from Melissa that says, do you have any specific training for staff that you recommend?
So if you look in our staff training section of the municipal guide, we do have a list of some of the topics that could be focused on. It's also in our workplace culture, but we don't promote specific trainings. We do on Active Abilities Canada have a list of training that is linked within the guide that will be updated actually in 2026. So you can look at that now for guidance. There's a link in the guide to that under the staff training area of practice, and just recognize that it will be updated in the future.
I don't see any more questions in the chat or the Q&A, but maybe we'll give folks a few moments to think of a question if they have it.
No, that's great. I just want to thank our guests today and our knowledge brokers, Adam, Marina, and Wendy. Thank you so much for sharing your stories and your experiences. It looks like Oh, I thought maybe someone was asking a question, but I just wanted to thank you so much for coming today. Thank you for our partners, our funding partners, Spark and Government of Canada for supporting this project. Thank you for being on this call. We had almost 200, just over 200 participants. That is incredible. What a day to celebrate. This is an important day. Persons with disabilities have an important role to play in society, and they're valued. And we're thrilled to have you part of this. And we look forward to 2026 as we implement the how-to strategies in the guide and we make systemic change in municipal recreation and physical activity across this country. So we should all be proud. Thank you to everyone that participated in the development of this guide. And please reach out to me if you have any questions in the coming days. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I see Paul has their hand up. I don't know if they want to say something. Do we have time, Taryn?
We do.
Okay. Paul, you should be able to unmute
You said it
yourself.
was a mistake.
Oh, okay.
That I think we'll end it now, but thank you so much. Thank you, Paul, for joining and for everyone on the call for joining today. Enjoy the rest of your day. And thank you again.
Thank you,
Perfect.
Taryn.
Thank you. Thank you to Jen for interpretation.